Nowhere in the contract did it say destroy half the house, but hey, life's full of surprises. The house had an existing dormer, which is a room in the roof, and we wanted to extend it and to get building regulations. So we got planning permission, and then we commissioned a builder to do the work. The project cost was, unbelievably, £38,000. The day the house collapsed was the 6th of August 2020. My wife and I were on holiday in a holiday home in North Wales. 9:30 in the morning on that day, the phone rang, a number we didn't recognise. Policeman had said, are you Mr. Hobby? I said, yes. He said, your house has collapsed. 2 men are trapped in the rubble, but they're screaming, so we take that as good news. And I'm like, good news? How can that be good news? And then the line went dead. When the dormer was being done, the builder decided to take the whole roof off and replace the roof. But he didn't put in props for the party wall, that's the wall adjoining us and our neighbours, the gable, which is the front triangle, and the chimney. By not propping it with wooden props or steel props, he turned those structures into what the engineer called freestanding structures, and they were obviously liable to collapse. It was the chimney pot and the chimney stack collapsing through into the first floor that caused all the damage, and that led to pretty catastrophic losses on our part and a catastrophic accident that left people injured, left the house destroyed. When we engaged the builder, one of the first things we did was talk about insurance, and he showed us his Direct Line tradesman's insurance certificate. It was Direct Line business to business. A day after the accident, we actually called Direct Line, who confirmed that there was a policy in place and confirmed the amounts of liability cover that were there. And so I just assumed, well, he's covered. And 2 days after the accident, Direct Line actually sent along their loss adjuster. Anyway, after that, Direct Line effectively went into radio silence for 6 months. They did what insurers call reserving their position. So they reserved their position for 6 months and refused to make any comment. They said they were investigating. And throughout this whole process, here we are nearly 9 months later, with Direct Line still refusing to pay. There's a financial difficulty, there's an emotional difficulty, and there's a practical difficulty. We've had to go and live somewhere else in a small flat by a railway line for 8.5 months. No, the whole thing has been an absolute nightmare.
Immediately when you talk to James, you understand how he's feeling and how frustrating the whole process must have seemed. We spent a long time talking to each other on the telephone and looking at his documentation to try and find angles that we could work through that would help him recoup some of the losses caused by the collapse of the building. We do an amount of pro bono work every year of this type where we feel insurers are not looking after their policyholders properly, and this was another one of those situations really. The biggest problem with any homeowner, particularly when they're doing to what to them is a large renovation project, is that most of them have no acquired knowledge. And so doing a renovation project is a little bit like walking into a pitch black room with holes all over the floor. And they're trying their best not to fall down them, but actually you don't know what you don't know. The perfect position for James would have been to engage an insurance broker who specialised in placing renovation risks to make sure that the contractual arrangements between him and the contractor were such that he'd stayed in control of the insurance for both the house and the works during the project. And then if this incident had happened and he was operating under those terms, the damage to the existing structure would have been covered, the damage to the works that had already taken place would have been covered, and in terms of liability, he'd have had absolute security knowing that if the contractor's cover failed and the contractors ended up directing personal injury claims against him, he would have been insured. For most people, their home is their single largest asset. When what you value most is at highest risk, is the point at which you need to concentrate most on having the right insurance cover in place.
The term works in your JCT contract refers to the cost of materials and labour that your contractor will be employing to change or extend your property for the duration that you've agreed. What's almost always true is that the works take longer than you and your contractor thought and will be more expensive than you originally estimated. Delays and increased costs can be for a number of reasons, but should be taken into account when you decide what sum to insure your project for. It could be that building works are delayed by bad weather, that some of the fittings you specified are not available at the time you need them, or that you decide to change the planned works in the middle of the project. It could be that ground conditions are challenging, or that a storm damages some of the works in progress. All of these things can affect how long you need renovation insurance for. It's best to allow slightly more time than you originally estimated when you take the policy out. We suggest you add 25% more time as a minimum. Likewise, it's important to make sure that the cost of the works is properly calculated and includes all the factors that could make up an insurance claim. You should insure for the cost of the contract, professional fees, debris removal costs, typically 15% of the value, and VAT if that cannot be reclaimed, which on most domestic projects it can't. If you forgot to take these things into account on a £300,000 project, the true reinstatement cost could be as much as £455,000. This would leave you underinsured and facing a bill of 30% of any loss. It could be difficult to arrange additional finance on a partially finished property if you don't have the money to make up the difference yourself. So be generous and give yourself some leeway. If you're not sure what your total project costs are going to be, then you can opt for a declaration basis of insurance. You simply insure the estimated figure and then make a declaration to the insurer at the end of the project for the total you actually spent. This way you won't be underinsured and you only pay the premium you need to for the cover you've used. Site security for your project is important too. Make sure you discuss this with your contractor in advance. Poorly secured sites often suffer from malicious damage, theft or arson, so make it a condition of the job that your contractor secures the site and any materials left in it. Likewise, works generate lots of rubbish and waste materials, and it can be a fire hazard if they're left to accumulate in a property for a long period of time. This is a particular problem in city locations where access to skips can be difficult. So ask your contractor to make sure that the property isn't left with lots of combustible materials inside for any longer than possible. The works will bring your dreams to life. Make sure that they're insured properly with a renovation insurance policy. Having someone who understands how to deal with works claims is important. It could mean the difference between a project getting back on track quickly or not at all.